Hello, we are Abracadabra Sisters. Abracadabra means as I speak, I create. And we're here to introduce you to creative people, hopefully inspire you to tap into some of that creativity of your own. I'm Sharon, and this is my sister Muriel.
Hi, I'm Muriel, and today we have a wonderful artist named Catherine Lavoie, who I have met through uh, several of my many artist groups here. We all travel around together. And Catherine, she works in a oeuvre, a style in the way that I do, which is fiber and fabric. We recently did a couple of shows together, I think,
Yeah.
and so I wanted to have Catherine come on and talk about her work because she comes at it not just for to make beautiful pieces that you can look at, but pieces with meaning. And sometimes people don't understand that art is very profound and there's more going on than just what you're looking at. So, Catherine, welcome. Uh,
Thank you.
a big question we always ask people at the beginning is, what got you started?
Well, I started making quilts in the early 70s. I grew up with quilts. My grandmother made quilts from scraps of heavy wool um, that my grandfather would bring home from the factory he worked in, where they made men's wool coats, winter coats. And my grandmother would take these scraps of wool and make quilts that we would get. These quilts were so heavy that when we were little girls and our parents would put the quilts on us, we would just lay there like this. We couldn't move because they were just so heavy. But we
Like
loved them.
a security blanket. That's a whole
Yeah,
thing now, those heavy, like weighted blankets that kind of
yeah,
make people calm down a bit, you know?
yeah.
So good.
And they were stuffed with horsehair. Anyway,
Yeah.
um, we love them, and I grew up loving quilts. So as a little girl, I helped my mother and my aunts make quilts. And then in the 70s, when I was on my own, I started making quilts and I loved Amish quilts. Are you familiar with the Amish quilts? So I loved the color palette. I loved doing everything by hand. And that's how I started. I made many, many log cabins.
Explain a little bit about that because people might not have any clue what that means that you made log cabins. You know, they think you're out there with a hammer and sawing some wood and stuff like that. But that's not what it is, right?
One of the most common and earliest patterns for quilts is called log cabin, where you take strips. Of course, in those days you would use scraps. You'd save every scrap of fabric, and you sew the scraps together in a shape that becomes a square, and it looks like the logs of a cabin stacked up. And the center of each square was red because that indicated the center of the home was the red heart
Oh,
of
I
the
didn't know that.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
that part I didn't know. The only quilts I ever did was in my teens. I did a log cabin quilt, and I kind of lost interest in it. Became a pillow. I didn't get very far.
You can't call that a quilt.
Well, you know, I was like, this is interesting. I'll give it a try. And I got to a certain point and I was like, yeah, all right, well, I got something here. Let's make it into a pillow.
Good.
Well, when Europeans came here, they had to make everything themselves. There was no Walmart to go down to and buy blankets. So when they were traveling across the country in covered wagons pulled by horses, every scrap of fabric was held special because you can't just go buy more fabric. There was
So,
a wonderful book out years ago of diaries of women who traveled from the East Coast across the country in covered wagons. And they talked about sitting in the buckboard and sewing pieces of fabric together. And I thought, wow, if you dropped your needle, what would you do?
exactly. Yeah.
But they were
Yeah.
they had to, because when they built their wooden huts, into the side of the hill or whatever, they had to have blankets for their family, and the only way to get them was to make them. So I loved that whole concept, and I did a lot of that in the early years. And then I gave everything away. And then around 2000, around the turn of the century, people started talking about art quilts, and I was fascinated with that. Art quilts. So that was like opening a whole new passion for me. And I had studied fine art photography. So, of course, I wanted to see how do you get photographs on fabric. And I experimented with that quite a bit. And you saw one example of that at my show with the image of my mother on life-size image of her on, chiffon. That was so beautiful.
Beautiful. Yes.
So I practiced with getting photographs on fabric. I painted on fabric. I cut stamps and stamped it, and just did all kinds of things. And it's just gotten better and better since then. And now I'm retired. I'm old. I feel totally free to do whatever I want. And so I do crazy things like this. But I also we talked about the four dimensions of my personality. I also feel strongly committed to social justice, and that includes aspects of mental health because I spent my 50 years of my career as a nurse practitioner in mental health. So I've made a number of series that have to do with recovery from trauma in particular, or from addictions. And that's a very important aspect for me, that the work has meaning not only to me, but to other people in a way that I hope inspires people.
I really think when you're putting intentions into your work, those intentions, and that's why we're doing this, because the idea of I create as I speak, it's almost like we're speaking something, and then when we put it into the artwork as well, we're giving it even more of an impetus to become something in the world. So
Yeah.
your work that's addressing those issues of mental health, community, whatever it might be, it's a subtle shift in the creative fiber of the universe that pushes things into that, whatever it is you're trying to create or uplift or educate or intimate or.
It's like a two-way exchange because you get something out of it too. It reinforces what you put into it, reinforces the energy you put into it. You're communicating how you feel. And while you're working on, because I know that the last project I did took me 2.5 years, and for 2.5 years, I was focusing on what I created, and it was a wonderful warmth of I I can't explain it. It was something I needed for my soul, and it was helping me as much as I was creating it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally get that. And you never know, or I never know, how my work is going to affect other people. And it's always, and it's perfectly okay with me if people say I can't relate to your work at all. I'm like, that's really okay. There's a lot of art I don't relate to either.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Very gratified when my work touches somebody and they share it with me. For example, I had a piece that I was exploring my own feelings about rape, and as a therapist, I worked with many women and a few men who had survived rape, and worked through it and resolved their issues and went on to create beautiful lives for themselves. So I made this quilt that I thought was about rape, but then I realized that's not what it was about. It was about recovery from rape, and I called the quilt Victorious. And it's in a show in Kent, Connecticut right now. So with this woman and I were looking at it and we were talking about it. And then she told me a very personal story about rape and recovery for somebody close to her. And the two of us just embraced and held that story, that courage, and that victory between us as only women can do. That this is something women live with. And to have it become so tender between us was magical for me.
It can be healing to create something out of a trauma.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and like Sharon making a needlepoint after our mom died.
yeah.
That was her healing process. And yeah, it's there's so much to art. It's funny because we live in an area here in Connecticut where quilts are a big thing. And there's this whole in I think it's Litchfield County has a like a quilt barn trail that you
Oh,
can
yes, yes.
the barn paintings that are quilts. It seems like kind of a ubiquitous or very American, like a household kind of a thing, but it's not for a lot of people. It's originally a quilt was, as we were saying before, a life-giving, life-saving thing. It was
Yeah.
an essential
Quilts
thing.
are so special. In,
Yeah.
in the early days, do you know people would make a special quilt that was theirs to be wrapped in when they're buried?
Oh, I didn't know that. I knew
Isn't
there were
that
like wedding
interesting?
quilts and baby quilts and
Yeah.
things like that.
Quilt,
Yeah.
you're right, there are. But quilts are a part of our lives in our major transitions, like getting married, like having a baby, like a graduation. My mother made quilts for every one of her grandchildren when they graduated from high school, and they cherish those quilts.
Yeah.
They're so special.
We have such a sort of, I don't know, a casual relationship to fabric these days. You
Yeah,
buy the clothing, you wear it for a couple of seasons, and then you're sick of it and you throw it out. But in those days, yeah, every piece of fabric was precious, and
yeah,
so constantly reused. And
yeah.
once it was done being a quilt, then it gets stripped to pieces and woven together to become a rug.
That's
So,
right. That's
you
absolutely
know,
right. Yeah.
so everything got reused, and it would be really nice to sort of go back to that respect and cherishing of so much of the stuff that we deal with in our lives.
Well, now that you mention that, the ubiquitousness of quilts, I'm so happy that fiber arts are becoming prominent in the art world, that woman's work is becoming recognized. And somebody just said to me, well, that's craft. Well, I don't care what you call it. You can call it,
Really?
you can call it anything you want, but it's beautiful and it's worthy of being shown and talked about and respected and considered.
It's funny you should say that, like it's craft, because I was thinking that this morning, that they make the distinction between art and craft as if craft is a lesser form of art, a lesser. And the funny thing about it is craft, generally speaking, kind of a lot of times is creating something useful,
Mhm.
so uh and it kind of rolls into that whole thing, Muriel, that you were talking about when you were in your pottery class, how you got
Yeah.
to an argument with the teacher about like pottery is useful, pottery is art. um it can be both. And it's kind of like a way of kicking women's work down, making
Yes,
us less
yes, yes.
important because we make beautiful things that are useful.
I'm thrilled that now there are many young women who are curators now. And that's why the Mattituck has so many wonderful exhibits that not only include but feature women. The
Yeah.
Mattituck Museum in Waterbury has a great exhibit right now, but they've had many. And many other museums now are opening up to the kinds of work that women do, not just the quilting, but the weaving, the basketry, and painting. Women
Yeah.
are amazing painters. So anyway, I think we're in a very exciting time that all these
Yeah.
Well,
opportunities
also,
are.
also, I see that it's crossing over. I mean, I'm an avid fan of TikTok. I love seeing what kinds of creative things people are doing on TikTok. And there's a young man, very young, looks like he's about high school age, and he's crocheting purses,
Yeah,
beautiful, beautiful little handbags,
yeah,
and selling them. And I'm thinking, good on you. I mean, he's inspired, and there's all this chit chat back and forth about how men have been making women's fashion for years, and why
yeah,
shouldn't he? And because he's a teenager, he probably gets razzed about doing it, but he still does it, and I think I find it commendable that
Yeah,
yeah.
and
someone's.
I love that I see there are men like there's one guy who knits these incredibly complicated Fair Isle sweaters. And he
Um,
like shows you one, then he's wearing another one, then he's wearing another one. It's not like he knits one, he knits like six of them and then shows them all in a row. And then or the other thing is crochet, which, for so many years was just like bitty old grandmothery thing, like a bitty grandmother, scarf
And they
or
made the granny
shawl,
squares. You sew together the
granny
granny
squares, yeah,
squares.
granny square blankets and things like that. Well, now I've seen these like big black, athletic men wearing granny square pants
yeah,
and a jacket of granny
yeah.
squares. It's like that hip. It's become that hip. And I love that. I think it's just great. And the other thing seen I think on Instagram was uh, a a train, like the subway, and like a dozen people, men, mostly men, couple of women maybe, knitting. They're all knitting together on the train.
Yeah,
God
You
yeah.
bless.
did you used to do that, Sharon, when you were when you were taking the
I was,
train?
yeah, I made a bunch of friends on the train. We all sat around and knitted together on our commute on the Long Island Railroad. I wanted to tell Catherine about something else that I know I sent it to you, Muriel, or we've talked about it. There's a video, a little movie. I think it's a documentary. I think it's on Netflix. They're of a program in a prison
Oh
where
yes,
they
yeah,
make
Well, the
quilts
quilt.
yeah,
for they're making birthday quilts, and
yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's just a wonderful idea.
Can
It
anybody
is.
And they
remember
get
the
so
name of the
excited about
movie?
designing a quilt for some kid they've never met for their
Yeah,
Yeah.
birthday.
it's
Yeah.
called The Quilters, and
Yes.
it is a
It's
wonderful documentary. Yeah,
And it's only about 20 minutes. So
yeah,
I think it's pretty short and it's really worth watching it because it's so inspiring. And, there's one point they were saying, well, this guy's a murderer. They wouldn't give him, they're not going to give him a pair of scissors anywhere else in the prison, but he gets to have some scissors here
yeah,
in the quilt shop, you know?
yeah, yeah. And they take it quite seriously, and they really do a good job. But I want to get back to
Well,
crocheting for a minute. I collect doilies. My grandmother, who came from Ukraine, she she made astonishingly beautiful doilies. I have one scarf that she made, and I treasure it. But
was
I
she crocheting them or tatting them, or do you know how she was
crochet,
making crochet
crochet.
doilies?
She had
Yes.
arthritis in her fingers, and she felt crocheting helped her keep her fingers going. But I go to thrift stores a lot, and always there's a bundle of doilies that have been thrown away, been discarded. And it breaks my heart when I see that because I always think of my grandmother. And I made doilies. I made some exquisite ones with these tiny little threads. I can't believe I could see that
Yeah.
well. But I collect them because they are a beautiful example of women's craft slash art.
Yes.
And they're discarded because people don't know what to do with them, I guess.
And
But
they're not fashionable anymore, you know?
just
You're not going to go into any house and see a doily sitting on the bureau, you know?
That's true. Just this week, a woman gave me doilies. She doesn't know who made them. They were in her family, but she had wrapped them tenderly in tissue
Mhm.
paper and
Nice.
handed them to me like here's something. She knew it was precious, but she
Yeah,
didn't want it because she didn't know what to do with it. So I have a lot of them, and they're incorporated in lots of my art. And I'm
great.
very, very respectful of them when I use them. And I always give a little nod to my grandma about it. I
Nice.
also collect wedding gowns. I don't know if I told you that.
Oh, really? Wow.
And I started doing that because I was in Goodwill and I see wedding gowns hanging there. And I think, wow, how does a wedding gown end up in Goodwill? And because I'm a therapist, I know it's probably not a good story that a wedding gown ends up, wedding gowns are so special. So I started buying them and now people give them to me. And now I have suitcases full of wedding gowns.
Wow.
But what I do is I very, very carefully deconstruct them. And I notice I could never make a wedding gown. They are so intricate. They are so amazing. Some of them are beautifully all the beading is hand stitched. It just blows me away. Anyway, I make art with them because I want to give them another life. And I just today at the Matatuck, I saw something that gave me an idea that I'm going to do some stitching on some wedding gowns this weekend and have some
Oh,
fun.
great.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, see, I love your layering of consciousness that goes through the work.
Mm,
The idea of repurposing these pieces that are have been really important in people's lives. And no, I'm totally into the idea that we are really a spiritual being living a physical life,
yeah.
and that everything that we encounter in our lives has some kind of a frequency or an energy to it. So I feel that, by doing that, you are honoring that frequency of those items
Yeah.
and allowing them to continue to exist in some different form and
Mm.
uh, and it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I wanted and I had a thought while you were talking about Matatuck that you might want to go to I think for just a few more days. There's a place called Brown Grotto.
Oh, I know Brown Grotto.
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Did you see this year's
No, but my
this show?
time.
It's a gallery. Brown Grotto is a gallery and they specialize in fiber art.
Yes.
Sharon, the
Really?
stuff is amazing, like
Yeah. Yeah.
metal, metals that are woven and dimensional and like bowls that have just been like knitted into shape with wire or
Yeah.
knitted into shape with grasses or just, and everything is so curated just beautifully. I mean,
Yeah.
you feel like you're going into a museum. It's this people's house, like a barn. And then they're selling all this incredible fiber art,
Hmm.
dimensional like wall art and dimensional art, and it's just amazing. I just was so inspired by it.
Some of the weavings there are that he finds, they are just amazing.
They have beautiful, beautiful work there. So,
And is
so I
this a
recommend.
limited show? Is it on for
Yes, it's not a
how long?
show. It's like a sales event because they represent all these artists. So they have like twice a year, I think they have a
Yeah.
10-day open event. They have a big opening and then they have 10 days where the doors are open where people can come.
Their website is gorgeous and you can see
Yes.
all the previous shows on it. Every time
Yes.
I go, I buy the book and I just look at it. It's so
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah.
It's
So they
inspiring.
have a website and a book available.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Do
I'm,
you sell your work?
oh, yes, I do. Yeah.
And is there work for sale on your website, or do you sell through a gallery?
I don't sell through a gallery. I'm I'm a member of two different galleries and my work is sold there. If anybody sees something on my website that they want, I'm happy to talk about it. But my last show, I sold quite a bit. It was very exciting.
She had all these beautiful pool noodles, but she had put gorgeous, brilliant, colorful African fabrics on them, and they were the purpose, I think, wasn't to float in the pool, but to like have a like a puffy sword fight or
Yeah.
just like to, sit on them or whatever.
Just
They
for
were really
fun.
fun. It was really fun. They were like filled up the whole
Yeah.
windows, and it was colorful and fun and we can do that too as artists. We can make fun things, fun stuff, fun
Absolutely.
experiences,
That's what I wanted. I wanted those two windows just filled with color and shape. And I made some fish that I hung up in there too.
Yeah, the fish were great too. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Do you mostly use a sewing machine to do your work, or do you
yes, I do
hand
mostly
stitch?
use, oh, I do a lot of hand stitching. I like hand stitching. But for big quilts, I do both on my quilts. But yes, I have two wonderful machines. I'm very grateful for them. They're fantastic. I use Janome 9450s.
I love my Janome.
Yeah, yeah. I started out, I started out with whatever hand-me-down anyone would give me. So I've had Singer and White's and who knows whatever. And then I went to Bernina, and my early work with the Bernina, I really loved it. But then I found Janome, and they're just fantastic. That drop-in bobbin makes such a difference from the one you have to put underneath. And now my sister has a long arm. So my really big quilts I do on the long arm, but I do it myself.
Great. Great. Yeah, I've been through a lot of sewing machines myself. At one point, I had 7 sewing machines, and luckily I was able to rent them out to a show that I did. I was on, so that was nice. But then and none of them worked, and I bought a Janome, and so I, for the first time in my life, bought a sewing machine. It's a new one.
I
Is it?
bought the Janome. I bought my Janome during COVID because I was designing and making face masks
Uh-huh.
for
Yeah.
people. I
Yeah.
started doing it for a hospital, and then I kind of like played around with the pattern and started giving away face masks to people, and I was sewing up like crazy.
Yeah.
And I kind of killed my machine, then I kind of killed my mother's machine, and then I was like,
I'm sewing
I
my
needed
own
a
mask. Yeah.
machine.
Yeah.
And what I liked about the Janome, the one that I bought, is that I saw a demonstration. The guy was sewing it on a ruler, on a yardstick, a wooden yardstick. He sewed right through a wooden yardstick on the Janome. And I was like, I need something like that. It's like a tank.
It's got to be a 65 or 6700.
Not
That
sure.
I
I'm not
had a
sure what
65.
what the number is.
Yeah, that's a workhorse. That's a great machine. I never sewed through wood, but I've sewn through a lot of other stuff.
Yeah. Great.
Well,
That's
when I
Well,
was making the masks, I had a lot of different layers, and I had a pocket
yeah,
with the wire, so I had a
yeah.
stitch right up against the wire. Sometimes I would hit the wire, so it was very handy for me because the part that goes over the nose was rather thick, and then you had to fold around. The way it worked, I needed something that was maneuverable and also sturdy, and it was perfect for me.
And Sharon was
I don't
doing
think
all the research and figuring out not just I'm not just going to use the fabric. I'm going to find like a bacterial resistant special
Oh,
fabric to put on the inside to make sure that it's really doing the job. And
wow.
so she got
Oh
Wow.
yeah,
serious about it.
that's right. I found that those shopping bags that you get, like the non-woven poly,
Yes.
what do you call it? Like if you buy a Target bag or whatever,
Yeah.
that fabric is the same fabric they use for the N95 masks.
Oh,
So I
okay.
bought the fabric and I designed a filter, a washable filter that you could put in, had a filter pocket in my mask so you could put the filters in and you could wash them and you know and apparently laying in the sun was the best way to sterilize them. So
Wow.
it was fun. I made thousands of them. I don't
Yeah.
miss it. It was fun. I have a mask that matches pretty much every outfit. I've got like tons of them. I don't wear them anymore, but I've got them.
Thank goodness we
Hold
don't
on
have
to
to.
them. We don't know what's coming next.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Well,
right.
What's
Muriel,
next for you?
you probably remember the one in my show in New Haven, the yin yang symbol.
Yes.
That was made with discarded high-tech power cords
Oh, wow.
that I stitched onto a non-woven fabric called Peltex. But I zigzagged over all those wires, and some of them were quite thick. I broke a lot of needles.
Mm.
My Janome just held up. I just powered through it. And yeah, that was really
Okay.
interesting. I won't do that again.
No, yeah, sometimes it's torture, right? I've spent so many years at a sewing machine that I kind of try to avoid it these days, because it can be torture. It can be, particularly if you're trying to force something, something too thick through it or whatever. But anyway, so let's not complain. I'm not complaining. No, it's
But you know,
it's nice to have skills.
it is a very physical process, even though
Yeah,
you're using a sewing machine. It's very physical. My
yeah,
shoulders get tired, my back gets
yeah,
tired. I have to
yeah,
get up and do some yoga and get my bones
yeah,
back. It's
yeah,
it is very
Do you
physical.
do you
yeah.
ever have like a vision, an idea of something you want to do, and you just have to scrap it? Like, do, do you always manage to get what you're looking for? Do you ever go, oh, I gotta pivot because this isn't gonna work?
Hundreds of times.
It's part of the process. That's what I always say is the difference between design and art. Design, you design something, you figure out what it's going to be, and then you go ahead and you make it, and that's it. But when it's art, you say, I think this is my idea. I'm gonna go this direction. And then you get halfway in and you're like, I don't know. Maybe I'll pick a pivot over here. Let me try
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
And then by the time you're done, it could be something very different because there's a
yeah.
learning process to every single piece of art, I think. We're
I think
not
right.
we're not just wrote doing something we did yesterday and the day before and the day before that. We're doing something that's an exploration in this moment, and it may or may not come out the way we think because we're still exploring some kind of an idea.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah,
Always feel like
and they don't know. Sorry, go ahead.
I always feel like I'm experimenting in what I'm
Yeah.
doing. And I really don't like to do the same thing twice. I really don't. I like to move on to, something else. But yes, it is for me, it's always an exploration. And even though I have it in my mind, oh, I think I know what I'm going to do, that almost never works. There's there you start down the path, but then this catches your eye and you hear that and you've got to go look at that. And the whole process just, I don't know, it kind of leads you through areas you didn't expect to go to. And I love that part. I absolutely love that. I always say, I wonder where this is going to go.
Yeah.
I think I'm
Yeah.
still learning. I think I'm still learning on that one because I had I felt like I was banging my head against the wall with my last project because I had a vision in my head and I couldn't get it like exactly where the vision was. I think what happened was it kind of wore me down and I started to realize that what I was getting was probably better than the vision I had in my head anyway.
Isn't that
Uh,
great?
yeah. And the
Yeah.
thing is that whoever is looking at your work, they don't know what you originally intended. You could just say, I meant to do it that way.
Yeah, and that mistake in there that you want to point out to everybody and say, "Well, I didn't mean to make that mistake." They don't know. They
That's
don't, they
right.
don't know that that was a mistake on your part. It's like, "Oh, what an interesting twist you put to that hand," or whatever,
And
whatever
do
it
you
is.
find that sometimes those mistakes are the most wonderful thing that happen?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, because it takes you in a direction that you didn't think you were going to go necessarily. And we kind of have to trust our intuition. I think our intuition is leading us down the garden path. And, as long as we follow it, we're going to find some new primroses that are interesting or, whatever idea might need to come up.
Have you read Dan Brown's new book, Secret of Secrets?
Oh, no, that sounds interesting. Great. I didn't know he
It's
had a new
really
book.
fun. But what he talks about at great length, if you know Dan Brown, he can't help himself. But what he talks about is non-local consciousness.
Yes. Yes.
And I think a lot of time, I didn't know this until I read his book because I hadn't heard that phrase before, non-local consciousness. And what I got out of it, and I could be wrong, but what I got out of it is if you are open, if your mind is open to different ideas or concepts, they will come to you.
Yeah.
And if I'm making art and I'm determined that it's going to be ABC, my mind is closed to whatever else that the universe is offering. But if I say it might be ABC, but it might be MNG,
Yeah. Yeah.
if I'm open to that and I'm open to saying, oh yeah, that looks better over there. Oh yeah, we don't need this. It entirely changes not only the process, it changes my energy and it changes my joy in the work.
Yeah. Yeah. There is an awesome TED Talk by Elizabeth, who wrote Eat, Pray, Love. I can't
Yes.
remember her
Yeah.
last name. She does this talk about creativity. I don't know if she says that non-local consciousness, but the idea that we're all a spiritual being, we're all connected, we're all of the same divine, and that expanded knowledge is available to all of us. And so she talks about the creative process that so many people have. I'm gonna have to watch it again because it's just brilliant. And she talks about like one famous like rock and roll star she said was one day he's driving somewhere, and an idea for a song comes into his head. And as he's driving, he's like, I'm not in the studio. And he stopped the car and he said, stop it. I'm not in the studio. You have to come to me when I'm in the studio and I can get this down. So then the other story that she tells of is of a poet who usually traveled with a pencil and a pad everywhere.
Yeah.
And she's walking through the field, like taking a morning walk, walking through the field, has walked quite far into the field, and suddenly a poem comes into her mind. She hears the poem going through her mind, and she is running back to the house as fast as she can run back to the house to get something to write it down. She gets to the house, gets the pencil, and writes it down from the last word to the beginning, backwards. She writes it down backwards because she remembers it. So that's how she retrieved it. And I do remember once having like this morning, sort of waking up, and I heard the most beautiful voice, like telling me something incredibly profound. And it must have been like Lakshmi or Saraswati or it was an Indian goddess was telling me something. And then I woke up and I was like, oh, that was just beautiful, but I can't remember a bit of it, So there is this there is this thing out there. And I've also heard, she might have said this or someone else said it, that really good ideas can come to us. And if we don't, you've got a really good idea and you don't act on it, it's going to go looking for somebody else
Yeah. Yeah.
to take that idea. And I've
Yeah.
got like my book and my television show I'm working on, and I'm constantly saying, please don't go to somebody else. I don't want you to move on. Just stick with me. We're going to make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, that's my, what I've heard about non-local consciousness, other than having my own experience of it. We all, I think, have an experience of it, and
Yeah.
it can be called inspiration, right?
I think, oh, that's an interesting word. Inspiration, inspire,
In spirit,
in
inspirited.
spirit. Yeah, that's a great word. Yeah, breathing it in.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think what gives me the most joy in my work is being able to be open to other ways of seeing it and not being locked into some rigid way.
I don't know. For me, with poetry, um, if I'm too emotionally invested, it's very laborious. It's very, very hard for me because I have to keep stepping back
Mhm.
from the emotional aspect of it.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of the things I felt inspired to write about recently have been I've been very emotionally invested in,
Mm.
and maybe that's the excuse I'm using for why I'm not writing, I guess. But I kind of felt sad. I felt like, oh, yeah, it's like my muse hasn't visited me in a while.
Mm.
Yeah, but Sharon, you know something? Sharon is an amazing tarot card reader. She's
Oh,
incredibly intuitive and you know, and that's I think part of that
I do
non-local
too.
consciousness going
Yes.
on. And so you maybe need to just have a conversation with the non-local consciousness before you sit down to write and say, excuse me, but I'm dialing in right now. Let me dial in.
Hello.
Maybe I just have too many hats. Maybe I need a hat to wear when I'm writing poetry, a
Yeah,
hat to wear when I'm doing the tarot, a different hat to wear when I'm doing the needlepoint, so that the spirits know which one gets to contact me at what time.
that's a good idea. Yeah.
Well, no, you're saying that like in a playful way, but there are definitely spiritual rituals that address exactly what you're saying. It is kind of transforming into a different aspect of yourself. And you're right. That's a wonderful thing to do. However that works for you, whether it's with water or with yoga or with meditation or with changing your clothes. There's nothing wrong with that. Sometimes what we're wearing influences how we feel and what we're capable of doing.
But
But
I
I,
think you're right. It's like a tea ceremony. I mean, if
yes,
you
yes,
have to, it's not about the tea. It's about the shift into. It's about this. The ritual
yes,
brings you into the right frame of mind, the right consciousness for what you're going to be doing. Do
right.
you have any kind of ceremonies like that that you go through when you're about to work?
I do. Be formalist to call them a ceremony, but I do meditate and I do yoga, and I okay, here's the key. When I start bumping into things and dropping things, I need to stop. That's my signal to myself that I'm not in my body anymore.
Oh, that is so great that you're in tune with that, you
Yeah,
know? That's brilliant.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it every time that's the message. You need to stop. I
Yeah.
shut everything down. I go in my room. I have a singing bowl, and
Lovely.
I just sit quietly. I light a candle, and I just sit quietly until everything comes down, and I feel I have come back to myself.
I do that. I drop things. My mind's always 5 minutes ahead of me. I'm always thinking, and that's a problem when you're
Well,
always trying to.
it's because you're a creative person that you have such an active mind. But if you could balance that out with taking time to sit and meditate, even if it's only 5 minutes, shut everything else out, just breathe, just be present, be quiet, and think about I'm collecting myself. So you're pulling all your creative energies together and you're sourcing them within yourself. That your mind is all over the place is not the problem. The problem is you got to give it a rest and balance it.
Yeah, I my current spiritual practice is and I've never read the book, but I love the title, Be Here Now.
Oh,
And
that's
yeah, and I just it's just like you know, I just want to just stop and smell the air and look at the trees blowing and you know, and just try to instead of you know going for a walk and thinking about what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do next, what I'm going to do next, I'm just you know look at the pavement, look at the flowers, look at the sky, and just absorb it and even just look in myself and say, you know, how am I feeling? How are my feet feeling?
yeah,
How
yeah.
is my what is
Mhm.
my mind doing right now? Oh dear, it's going off on a tangent, you know? And
Yeah.
I mean that's really our only our most important job as a human being, I think, is to figure out and manage ourselves somehow to you know to just manage our own state. That's what I've been saying lately. Our main job is to manage our own state of mind, because you can see how, what?
Pema Chodron calls that making friends with yourself.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. Yeah, because we can see out there in the world what kind of damage is done when people don't manage their own state.
yeah,
And then and then it kind of ripples out into all kinds of nutsy things. So I'm,
Yeah,
I
it
figure it.
feels like people who are most likely to try and bully you into going into their way of thinking are people who are less secure about their way of thinking. They
yeah,
need
Oh,
you to be in
exactly.
agreement with them.
So for me, it's about that vibrancy of spirit and life, and I try
mhm,
to get that into my work. You try to get that into your work, Sharon. You get that into your work.
yeah,
That's what we're looking for.
yeah, yeah.
It's been a very interesting conversation. So, thank you,
Thank
Catherine, for
you. Thank you.
joining us. I really, really appreciate it that you agreed on short notice to join us here.
This has
So,
been great. It was so nice to meet you, Sharon.
Likewise, likewise.
to close, we are Abracadabra Sisters, interviewing Catherine Lavoie. So,
Yes,
thank
and
you.
please, if you enjoyed listening to this, please subscribe, um, comment, hype, whatever you can do to help us. We're new and we're muddling our way through trying to get this message across to people. So we would really appreciate anything you can do to help us.
And share your inspirations and what you've been creating too. That would be great.
Thank you.